and officially welcome you to Teaching Sustainability Through Media Literacy, project of Project Look Sharp. And I'd like to introduce you to your Q&A moderator and the Executive Director of Project Look Sharp, Cindy Scheib. Have a great webinar.
Thanks, Louise. That's great. So I would also like to welcome everybody. For those of you who are not familiar with Project Look Sharp, we're a grant-funded media literacy initiative of Ithaca College, and we provide both professional development through lots of different modes, both face-to-face and through digital technologies, and also curriculum materials for educators to use in their work with students across all curriculum areas. So we focus primarily on K through 12 and college education, but our materials and approaches are easily adaptable for community groups, homeschooling, and lots of other educational contexts. It's important for you to know that all of our curriculum materials, including most of the images and video clips that you'll be seeing today in today's webinar, are available free of charge for educators through our website, projectlooksharp.org. And we're particularly delighted to do this webinar. We're just slightly past Earth Day, and with the Paris agreements that happened this year, we think it's a particularly great time to be doing this work. And we'd like to acknowledge the Park Foundation, our major funder. They're the ones who provided the funding and support and a very long-term commitment to sustainability for doing these webinars and for the curriculum materials you're going to hear about. So I'm delighted to introduce the leader of this webinar, Sox Sperry. He's our program affiliate and the main curriculum writer for Project Look Sharp. So I am going to turn it over to him.
Thank you, Cindy, and welcome everyone. It's delightful to be with you as always on these webinars. Some of you may have participated with us in the past. Others of you attending for the first time, delighted to have you here. And just want to mention that this is a especially interesting topic for me because I began my career many years ago as an elementary school teacher, teaching topics of sustainability back in the 1970s. And this is an opportunity many years later to sort of marry my current interest in media literacy curriculum design with my early content interest in working with young people to engage questions around sustainability and other issues relating to social justice in the world. So really happy to be here to do that. I also want to give a particular nod to two teachers who helped develop the curriculum that you'll be seeing today. That's Karen Arnold and Brian Goodman, who were both helpful in designing this curriculum, and may reference them as we go. At the very outset, we're beginning with a graphic that Cindy Scheib designed in collaboration with a number of others that really, in many ways, I think, is a good representation of what we understand media literacy to be, a process of what Paulo Freire, the Brazilian educator, called praxis, the interaction between reflection and action, and then back again. Always working with inquiry and reflection at the core. To say a little bit about what our goals are for today, we'll tour you through some brand new curriculum materials. These materials are not yet available, but they will be for free on our website, available this summertime. In particular, we're looking at materials that come from two of our curriculum kits, both focused on sustainability, one for lower elementary, kindergarten through second grade, and the other for upper elementary, third through fifth grade. We'll also be, for the first time in our series of webinars, talking about media production as a way to deepen media literacy awareness, and all of the lessons that we are designing here have production components to them. And then finally, we'll be really encouraging integration of language, math, science, and social studies in ways that we have not in our upper grade level materials in the past. And this has been one of the exciting things about working on sustainability, thinking about this on a systems level when it comes to actually integrating the topic areas. And you'll note that as we move through the webinar today. I'm going to jump right in as we usually do, we'll get to chats in just a second. The first lesson that we'll be working with integrates English language arts, science, and social studies. It's a second grade design lesson for second grade, although easily adaptable for older and younger children, focusing on having students help articulate important information about the bodies of water where they live in their own communities. It includes English language arts components, in particular speaking and listening skills. And what you're seeing here is a lesson plan including the objectives and the particular standards that we're teaching to in this arena. And the first series of documents that you'll see in a moment help students to participate in collaborative conversations with diverse partners around topics and texts relating to the sustainability in the environment, and particularly water quality. And so we're going to start right in with a chat. And for those of you who have not participated before, I really want to urge you to type in the chat box in response to the questions and get things going with good dialogue, which we've had every time since we've started this. So these are two book covers, children's book covers. And the chat question is, what do they tell you about how animals are impacted by oil spills? And how are these messages different? I'll pause for a minute while people begin to type in some of your answers and get the conversation going beyond my voice, which is what we hope. I notice some people are just coming on now, and if you are, we're in a chat mode, encouraging people to type in the chat box about the messages in these book covers. They tell you about how animals are impacted by oil spills and how the messages may be different. Leanne, sea otters are sad when they're covered with oil from a spill. And again, this is focused on second grade, so that clearly could be a 7 or 8 year old answer for this. If I was a teacher in the classroom, I'd follow that up and ask, how do you know the sea otter is sad? What's the evidence in the document? One of the key phrases we'll use over and over again is, what's the evidence in the document? So we might ask students to really reflect on how the artist chose to draw the sea otter's face. If that's noting that the effects of oil spills on sea life. And you can see the human interaction in the ship in the back. As a second grade teacher, I might ask, well, what's the connection between that ship and this sea otter? So an opportunity, again, to deepen students' capacity to think. Their home is being destroyed. Animals can't carry out their lives. Oil spills showing the sea otter struggling in the water. And there's some eco-bad guys hurting the penguins, says Mr. David. So this would be a really interesting one in a classroom. Who are the eco-bad guys? How are they hurting the penguins? How do you know that? So this is an opportunity, I think, again, to do what we're always trying to do, get students to think themselves, ask their own questions, and deepen awareness about a particular content area in this way. Now I'm going to move to another one. Let's do the same thing with this. Two different children's book covers, both having to do with water and water quality, in this instance having to do with Hurricane Katrina. What questions might you ask to encourage dialogue about your teaching goals? And this is written broadly. Many of the chat questions are typed in this way because we realize that each one of us who's attending this webinar has our own context. Some are ELA teachers, some are science teachers, some are working in the classroom, some outside the classroom, some particularly focused on the social studies aspect. So if you were working on this in your context, what are some good questions that might go hand in hand? Leanne's saying, what do these book covers tell you about how hurricanes impact people? Great. And as a teacher, I might ask, do they give the same message? Some of the same messages, or the messages different? What are those messages? Again, always asking for evidence in the document. I realize a number of people are typing right now. We're using these particular document pairs as a way to get students engaged with questions related to water where we live, bodies of water where we live, the impacts of human intervention on that water one way or the other. Some other questions. Which book looks like it would be more interesting to read? Great question, Cindy. And why? Why do you think that? How are people affected by disasters and weather? Great second grade question. How are people being helped during a hurricane? How do people help one another? This gives us an opportunity to talk about many different things. Science of weather-related impacts on human beings, but also social engagement. I'm going to keep moving through, although I understand other people are continuing to type. Urge you to stay focused on the chat. And I'll tell you a little bit more about how this lesson developed then. The next step in this lesson is to invite students to describe bodies of water near where they live and identify some of the cultural and environmental characteristics of specific places. This is actually C3 framework for social studies for people who are familiar with the new C3 framework. It's really great, National Council on Social Studies frameworks. In this instance, focused on geography and the importance of inviting young students to identify cultural and social character and environmental characteristics of particular places. So as an example, for students who are planning to complete with a video, which we'll be moving toward, you'll have a chance to see an example of that. One of the subgroups of second graders who'd be working in a class to eventually create a video about their own body of water, one of the things they might do is to make a storyboard, as it were, about a body of water near them. In this instance, we live by Cayuga Lake. What images might you have? We spent a lot of time there in the summer with friends doing fun things like canoeing. Again, some examples that students might use to spark their imagination to do their own creativity. And a fun fact about Cayuga Lake is that it's the longest of the New York Finger Lakes. Again, worksheets for students to help them begin to conceptualize what they want to communicate about this important place near them, this body of water. And then there'd be student worksheets for another small group working on impact. What are some of the impacts or threats to this body of water near you? And a third group working on action. And then we actually would invite students to begin to think about making the video, what particular places that they might select to focus in on their own bodies of water that they'd like to communicate with others. We'd use a decision-making process, a democratic decision-making process, and again, this ties to a social studies C3 standard on taking informed action, using consensus and voting procedures. And now we're going to see the first of a number of videos that we'll see today. And this is a video that we're inviting teachers to show as a way to use as an example. And during the showing of this video, I'll be quiet, but we'll encourage you to chat the questions you might ask to encourage dialogue about your teaching goals associated with this video. Okay, Lou, I'm going to go on mute while people chat.
This is an egg and it hatches 4 days after it's been laid. Bald-laid eggs are yellow. other one's sticky. And the first meal of the caterpillar is his own egg. Baby caterpillars are really little. This is a leaf after it's been eaten. This milkweed that they eat mixed in poison for most predators. Monarch butterflies lay their eggs under leaves for protection. When I touched a monarch caterpillar, it felt like a marshmallow. Did you know that when caterpillars get too small for their skin, they molt? After he molts, he eats and eats and eats. After he eats enough, he molts again. He molts 5 times. Monarch caterpillars have pretend antennae. He formed the shape of a J before he turned into a chrysalis. Chrysalis is all camouflage. This is not a cocoon because cocoons turn into a moth. This is a chrysalis or a pupa stage. Did you know that before butterflies come out of their chrysalis, it's clear? Butterflies have 6 legs and compound eyes. Did you know that when butterflies come out of their chrysalis, their wings are wet? He holds onto his chrysalis until his wing dries. The butterfly has 4 wings. 1, 2, 3, 4. Butterflies are symmetrical. The monarch has 2 sets of wings that help them fly to flower to flower. Butterflies like to get nectar from bees.
Okay.
Monarch butterflies.
So as the chat is suggesting, there are multiple ways to use a video like this, obviously. One has to do with the content itself. What do we learn about monarch videos? What are the purposes of a monarch butterfly? How do they grow and change? What did you learn about them that you didn't already know? These are content-related ones. Describe the life process of a butterfly. So all science-related content questions. There's also media literacy questions. Who's the target audience for this video? In this lesson, it's been especially important for us to ask these questions about who the target audience is, or what the purpose of this video is. What's it about? Because we're encouraging students to think about creating their own videos. So those are media literacy questions that couple with the science questions to make this potentially a rich dialogue. Now I'm going to move forward to a second video. This is an interesting one. This is about the making of this video, and we'll do the same thing as we did before. And please chat just as you were doing as we watch this video. What are some of the questions that you might be asking about this to your students in whatever your context is? Go ahead, Lou, I'll mute.
We've been learning about the life cycle of butterflies. We read books.
Bye-bye, butterfly, she whispered.
We sang songs.
And
We drew pictures.
now we have saved your picture.
We saw a real life chrysalis. We did some research in our garden, taking pictures and videos of their habitat.
Press the button to take the picture.
We really learned a lot. Take a look.
Did you know that there's over 300 different types of butterflies?
Did you know butterflies get nectar from the flowers?
Did you know that butterflies eat until they're full and then they go into their chrysalis?
We learned so much we wanted to share it with others. So we didn't know how, so we asked our friends.
Take a picture of it and show it to somebody.
We could use ourselves to tell it.
We could put it on YouTube.
We could put it on the internet. We could take pictures.
We could put it on TV. We could make a book of it and sell it. But then they came up with the perfect idea.
We could make a video on our iPads.
But we didn't know how, did you? No. Let's ask the teacher. Okay.
It goes right to where you edited it, doesn't it?
Yeah. We asked the teacher, and she said we could learn how to do iMovie.
Okay, well, let's add one of these butterfly pictures. Where is it going to go in our movie?
We do the pictures that we drew. And the pictures we took in the garden. We even added our voices on top of everything.
This is a picture of Foster talking about the chrysalis.
When we were done, we watched our movie on the iPad. And then we did it on a big screen.
All right, do you guys want to watch it?
Yeah!
Do you guys want to watch our movie on the active board?
Yeah! I wonder what we're going to do tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Park Tudor School. And so this is an opportunity to ask exactly the kind of questions that I see Yvette and Cindy and Leanne putting up here, so that students are beginning now to think about not just consuming a video someone else makes, but producing a video that they make. So the questions then become, how do you make a video? How does a student my age make a video? What are the different roles that students play in making the video? What is it they did to make the video interesting? The key questions for media production might be useful. These are for adults. You'll need to translate the questions, obviously, for students in the age group that you're working with. Lucy's asking, what do you think the hardest part in making the video is? All of these questions help students begin to think about themselves as video producers, perhaps something that they've never considered before. So I'm going to move us forward now and show you the third video in this set. And this came after then the next step, in which students really worked together to create and share a short video on efforts to protect water bodies where they live. In this instance, we're drawing on a next generation science standard. This one showing up in the disciplinary concept of interdependent relationship in ecosystems, about developing possible solutions. In this instance, possible solutions to water conditions, making it difficult for biodiversity to thrive. Designs can be conveyed through sketches, drawings, physical models, in this case a video, and these can be useful in communicating ideas for problem solutions to other people. So again, we're integrating, in this instance, ELA, media literacy, next generation science, and C3 social studies. And so the lesson introduction to this part was simply saying to students in this lesson, we're going to make a video to tell our target audience, in this instance students in other places, about our purpose, which is why we want to protect the water communities that we depend on. And so what we did was we actually had an opportunity to field test this. I want to, in particular, note and thank Jennifer Goodmark and Julie Wells, who were the second grade teachers who actually created a video based on the lessons that we just walked through, that you'll have an opportunity to see now, and we'll do the same chat that we did before. What are you noticing about the video production process, and also about the teaching process? And I will mute and
in Ithaca, New York, near Cayuga Lake. It is a beautiful place to live.
We have awesome waterfalls and gorges near our area.
We have outdoor classrooms and lots of places to learn outside of our school.
Six Mile Creek is important to us because it is our watershed, it's habitat for animals, it makes plants grow too.
Our 6 Mile Creek watershed is shaped like a squirrel. 6 Mile Creek flows into Cayuga Lake.
We have a big problem at 6 Mile Creek and our nature trail. The problem is that everything keeps on getting flooded, and also people keep on polluting. We need your help, and if you're far away, make sure to help your own watershed.
The area of 6 Mile Creek near our school in Wilderness Trail usually floods. That is because we are on a floodplain. Sometimes our creek is very shallow, and other times it is flooded. All the sediment from the tributaries wash down to the lake, and the water will look dirty. It will hurt people, plants, and animals.
Lots of people pollute the water. The water gets dirty. This is a problem because the pollution gets everywhere. Our drinking water gets dirty.
6 Mile Creek is a beautiful place, but if people litter, the tributaries will take the trash to 6 Mile Creek or Cayuga Lake. There are some threats to our water where we can take action and solve problems. In order to keep pollution out of our water, please be careful when changing your oil from your car. We don't want car oil in our water. Also be careful of pesticides because it will go in our water too. People should not litter. Be sure to keep your garbage in your garbage can and your recycling in your recycling can. When you are going on a walk, you should bring a plastic bag with you to pick up garbage.
Buffer plants are good to plant near water because the root systems will help hold the sediment and soil in place during a flood.
When people pollute in 6 Mile Creek, it flows down to Cayuga Lake. When you see pollution or pesticides, please go tell a grown-up or help clean it up.
Get us. Okay, Lou, let's go ahead and put the slide back on. Some great questions and noticings from this. Some of them have to do with the actual creation of the video itself. Many students involved, seeming passionate about the issues themselves. Also, so important, these comments that multiple of you are making about students as educators, students as agents of change in their own lives. I love what Lucy says. Students don't have to be expert presenters. Really, the message is to be engaged and participate. And then Joanne asking questions about the actual production itself or the impacts of the photos and the movie clips that we choose to use. What I like about this video and all of these videos is that as an elementary school teacher myself, I could use these effectively with second graders, fifth graders, or eighth graders. The noticings might be a bit different. The questions might be a bit different. But the opportunity to be able to really use this flexibly to invite young people to think about themselves as participating in education and educating others and urging others to action seems like such an important role for us as teachers. And as Cindy says, they're making the issue a personal one. It's tied to their own community and their own lives. Elaine, action involves everyone, those who live near the lake and those who live far away and also near a lake. So opportunities to really get students engaged in media literacy right from the get-go. I'm going to move now and shift the focus away from these opening videos, and we're going to now take a look at a lesson from the upper elementary kit. This was designed for 5th grade, but again, could be used with 4th graders, 6th graders, etc. And this lesson integrates math and science, where in a lesson in which students would compare messages about the impact of agriculture on freshwater availability through a variety of web pages and bar graphs, which you'll see. Students will solve and create math word problems that require dividing whole numbers into fractions or mixed numbers, which is the Common Core math standards that you'll see in the chart below. We began this lesson with some background information, again interactive, doing some video decoding on some media decoding of web pages. We won't actually chat with this, but we began with a number of different images that reflected on issues of water insecurity in a world of thirst. Asking questions, what are the messages on the web page? What's the evidence for your answer in the document? What group published it? When was it published? Again, questions that we want 5th graders, now 10-year-olds, for those of you who are coming from other countries, to know and understand. So here's one of the ones that we're using, and we'll have a chat with this. What are the messages from this headline, photo and text? And what's the evidence from the document? What are some of the messages that you note in this headline and these images? I'll be quiet while the chat gets started. Okay, and keep typing, please, those of you who are chatting. Joanne notes, as a vegan, what about the beef industry? And Joanne, you're prescient here. You're anticipating the next slide, actually. If that's noticing that the headline suggests that almonds are terrible, they're taking way too much water to grow. This is an opportunity to encourage 5th graders to begin to do some deep reading of a media document that includes imagery and text, asking them to reflect on meaning making, their own and others. Lucy's asking, which is worth more, making economic gains or conservation of a natural resource, a vital natural resource in water? A really important question for us to be grappling with in our classrooms and beyond. Leanne's pointing out that the message growing almonds creates a problem for California water supplies in particular, and the evidence that almonds take more water than LA itself. Almond growers don't care about sustainability, just about making money. And then we would ask Cindy in the classroom, where do you see that? How do you come to that analysis? What's your evidence? Is there another interpretation? Maybe not. And David's asking, recommending teachers make use of local issues with local newspapers. Absolutely. This, of course, is an example from California. Most of the people using this curriculum wouldn't be for California. We definitely want people to adapt these materials for their own particular place. So these are just examples here. I think I'm going to move on now to the next document. And let's do the same with this one. What are the messages in this headline, photo and text? And what's the evidence from the document? So oftentimes when we're creating curriculum like this, we'll want to contrast different perspectives. And as Leanne's pointing out, this is a very different message, that almonds aren't to blame for the water problem. And that's pretty apparent right from the opening headline. It's not almonds. Joanne's pointing out that statistics themselves can be misleading. And given that this is a math exercise, as we move on into looking at some graphs, I think this is a really important point, to be thinking about statistics. Who makes them? Do they lead us to more truth, or do they confound things? And why? And Cindy's asking the point here too, is it true that, is there some true in both of these, that both almonds and alfalfa are a problem themselves? And as Yvette's pointing out, there's more than one cause to this problem. So this is an opportunity in a classroom to really invite fifth graders to begin to think about, okay, maybe it's not so cut and dried, such a black and white perspective. We can begin to read more deeply and ask more deep questions for a more nuanced understanding of our world through the media that we consume. Depends on who's telling the story. Absolutely, Joanne. So now we'll do a poll. One of these headlines goes with this graph on the same web page. Either the first one you saw, California's almonds suck as much water annually as Los Angeles uses in 3 years, or B, a big culprit, California's drought starts with A, it's not almonds. So Lou, I'll ask you to bring the poll up for us and invite people to actually participate in the poll. Which headline goes with this graph? We'll take another minute or two. If you haven't weighed in, please do so. And I think we'll end the poll here. I'm going to end it. And Lou, I'm going to move on to the next slide. And in fact, if we can move maybe I can do that. I think we can dispense with the poll results now. And a majority of people said B. A big culprit in California's drought starts with A, and it's not almonds. Now, the real work begins in the classroom. What questions might you ask to encourage dialogue about teaching goals as relates this? Again, we were having some chats before about the complex nature of answers, that it's oftentimes not just one or the other, but in fact both. So this is an opportunity to use math and graphing to both inquire about media construction. Why were this graph chosen to accompany this particular article, this message, in this instance about the A not being almonds, but in fact being alfalfa, livestock feed. But it's also an opportunity, as people are writing in, to ask about other things as well. And Cindy's noting here that she wasn't thinking about alfalfa being eaten by the cows, but of course that's the A in the Huffington Post article that we were talking about. How many more tons of water does the beef industry take up? So here's some math questions for those of you who are interested in integrating math. This is an opportunity to begin to thinking about cubic meters per ton, what these numbers mean, how we can compare. I'm going to jump on simply to show you that, in fact, in order to make things more complex in the lesson itself, we actually had 3 different screen grabs of websites. You saw 2 of them, then there was a third from the Business Insider. And each one of those web pages had a graph that accompanied their article, making their point. And we were inviting students to think about which graph might have accompanied which headline and which web page and why. Again, giving them an opportunity to do some work with numbers, but also an opportunity to think about the ways in which statistics, visualized in graph form, are also media messages. And begin with an open question, like Christian says, what do you see in the graphs? Or then maybe a more specific question, what's the total consumption of the beef industry? Leanne, what other information might you need in order to decide if this chart is credible? Credibility is critical here. So it's an opportunity to use math skills to deepen our media literacy awareness. And then finally on this lesson, we invited students to come up with their own word problems using these graphs. And their challenge was to work with a partner to make up 2 word problems using information from any of the graphs or text examples in order to make interesting and achievable math problems for their classmates. This is an opportunity to, as we say in the text box up top, support students as questioners. I want to move now to the last part in the last 15 minutes of our webinar to focus on a particular issue. Again, this is in our 5th grade kit, having to do with hunger and asking students to grapple with the reality that there is hunger in the United States, using videos in order to discern themes, character development, storytelling techniques. These are reading for literature techniques, and also inviting students in the social studies arena to reflect on strategies to address the problem of hunger. So we'll do the same thing. I really want to urge you to do what we've done before as we look at these videos. What questions might you ask about this video in your teaching setting? And I'll ask Lou to
Do you know what hunger looks like? Is it the active mother of 2 working 50 hours a week? Is it the inner city teenager from a single-parent home? Is it the local farmer living on a fixed income? You may think that because she works 2 jobs, she has plenty of money for food, or that because of his size, he must have more than enough to eat. Or that because he is surrounded by food, he never has to worry where his next meal is coming from. Because even though she works, it's for minimum wage and no health benefits. Because even though he has food to eat, he can't afford to buy the food he needs to be healthy. Because even though he owns a small farm, he struggles to keep it going without taking a second job. Hunger comes in all shapes and sizes, all races and genders, all ages and environments. 50 million people in America don't know where their next meal is coming from. Hunger has many faces. Some of them you may even know.
Okay, Lou, let's go back to the image. Some great questions here. I think I'll just read some of these. What do all these people have in common? What are the causes of world hunger? And I would add to that hunger in our country, whatever country you're living in. Yvette's asking questions about perception, assumptions that we might have based on how people look and how we might change our perception. And what can you tell me about the faces of all these people? So this is a rich, short video. You might notice that almost all the videos I'm showing you are 2 minutes or less. The Caroline one was longer than that. But these are really great, short, what Paulo Freire called codes to use in a classroom to use the world to deepen our understanding. What techniques did the filmmaker use to make the message compelling? How were chips affordable but not healthy foods? And I would add to Melanie's question, what are some other affordable unhealthy foods? Are there affordable healthy foods? How do we know? How do we find these out? Some really great questions. And then we show a second video coupled with this to move toward action, beginning with reflection and now moving to action. Please chat as we start.
Do I touch it?
Yeah, go ahead. What is it?
Alright. What's your favorite food ever? This is tough. Salad, mac and cheese, pancakes, and popcorn.
My dad's steak.
Pizza. So good.
What food do you dislike most? I hate cheese.
Vegetables. Spinach.
Tomatoes.
What's a face you make when you eat raw tomato?
I don't eat it at all.
What do you do when someone gives you food you don't like? Play with it until it got cold. I'll say, hey, what's that? They look that way.
Right, because if it was gross, then why would I want to eat it?
Did you know that 1 out of every 5 kids doesn't have enough food to eat? 1 out of 5. 1 out of every 5 kids.
Can you turn the bag around and look at the other side?
Oh. I didn't know it was in America.
I don't know what to say to that. Makes me feel bad. Makes me want to cry. Wow.
That's a lot of kids.
It's kind of unfair because some people have too much stuff and some people have too little.
For me, I always get to eat lunch. And if that's a meal that I'm missing, I will feel very disappointed.
It makes me feel like, what are we going to do to fix this?
What is something we can do to help fight hunger together?
So over there we have a wall with tons of ideas, and we want to add your idea to the wall.
Kids could think, oh, that's not possible, or oh, I'm too young to do this. But it is possible, and you're not too young to do it.
Donate money as much as I can.
Make Thanksgiving every day.
We should all get a group and try to find the foods that would be easiest to give.
And we can take the food to homes where they don't have food.
That's a small way to have a big effect.
Post videos about children not being able to eat.
everyone brings canned food and they build a big fort. And then they donate all the canned food.
And then they can have everything for free.
If there was some machine that could make food, my machine would change it to 0 out of 5 kids being hungry.
The tiniest ripples make the biggest waves. If all the kids in the world got together and did something big, they could impact the whole world.
Okay, so I just want you to note that there are a number of different kinds of questions we're asking. Some are very personal. How did the video make you feel? How many meals do you have in a day? Some have to do with perceptions about hunger. Do you think everyone responds to hunger in the same way, says Shalane. Then media literacy questions. Leanne's asking, why do you think the producers asked the questions in the order they did, getting students to think about media construction? Why did the first question come first, the last question last? Christian's asking, now moving toward action again, as the Caroline video did about the watersheds. What can we do to help people in our community who have hunger? Cindy's asking, again, the media literacy question about techniques. How did they involve kids' voices? And the impact of that in terms of saying that kids can make a difference in the world. And what does hunger mean to you, bringing it back home? So these questions are very personal questions. They're also collective questions. They're questions that relate to a particular content area around food, food choices, food security infrastructure in our communities, in our world. Also questions about ethics and justice, questions about action, and in particular questions about students' capacity to be able to act. And then Leanne's bringing it back to a math question. Where'd they get their statistics and facts? So these are really critical questions that we need to be asking. The last thing I'll say about these videos, this set, is that they deal with an issue that can be very emotional. There may well be people in our classrooms who themselves or have friends or family members who've grappled with issues of hunger. So we need to be aware of that as teachers, thinking about how we create safe settings for people to disclose what they need to in response to these videos and the questions you're asking in a way that's really safe, so that no one feels shamed or hurt in the process. But media can be a wonderful entry point. Other than just asking the question on its face, how do you feel about hunger? An opportunity to really relate to some other children, other faces. This is also a great opportunity for students themselves to be questioners once again. We conclude this lesson by asking students to work with a partner to ask some good media literacy questions about the videos themselves that they then can pose to their peers. Who made it? What does it mean? Why did they make it? How was it interesting? How might it help or hurt? Who paid for it? Does it tell the truth? And what's left out? All key media questions. We want to know what other questions come up. Why do you think the children don't like vegetables? And how that might impact people's long-term health. I'm going to move now toward closure. Some take-home points for those of you who participated. I'm hoping that we've gotten across these points, that in fact we can explore complex issues with children that sometimes we tend as adults to think we should shy away from. And media production is one way to tie to media analysis, particularly highlighted in the first set of videos you saw, where second graders were making really a wonderful video themselves in a relatively short period of time. We can use media literacy questions to integrate all these different learning domains: math, science, social studies, language, particularly at the elementary level, but I would argue at all levels we need to begin to do this. We need to find rich documents and come up with incisive questions, and then encourage students to come up with incisive questions themselves, so they learn to become better questioners themselves, so that they can become better actors in the world. Once again, I want you just to focus in on the initial map of the process of media literacy and hope you can recognize the ways in which analysis, inquiry, reflection, creation led toward action. This is also an opportunity to say if you'd like a screensaver, a t-shirt, a poster for your classroom, you can go up onto our website. There's a Cafe Press spot on our website where you can order all of these materials with this Project Lookchart graphic if you choose to. There are more resources available on the website to probe deeper into these particular questions we've been dealing with today. I wrote an article for Green Teacher a year or two ago about sustainability, education, and media literacy, and in particular about how to invite students to engage in difficult, challenging, emotionally laden issues in the classroom, something that we have to be willing to think about and talk about. I also really want to encourage you to think about getting the Teacher's Guide to Media Literacy, co-authored with Cindy Scheib and our wonderful colleague Faith Rogo. This is a go-to guide for teachers who want to incorporate media literacy into all domains in the classroom. And you can find a link on how to get this and find some of the materials for the kit for this book, that is, on our website. And then finally, in closing, really invite you to take the survey about our webinar. This would be something that would be really helpful for us in the future. You can click on the link, take those surveys. For those of you who are accessing this webinar through the archive, you can complete the survey via a URL, send it in with an email to us. I also just want to say this is the last of our currently funded webinar series. It's been wonderful to do these. I want to thank Sherry and Cindy and Lou and Kelsey in particular, Garrett, whoever else has been helping us put this together on our team. It's been great to work with you. We hope to do more of these webinars in the future. I want to give another shout out, as Cindy did at the outset, to the Park Foundation that's made all this possible. And you're taking a webinar survey right now will help perhaps give us an opportunity to let funders know in the future that this is something you'd like to continue. These webinars all will be archived for free on our website. And thank you all for coming and participating. And I'm going to invite Cindy to unmute now. And anyone who has any questions or other things you want to ask about, we typically will stick around for the final 10 minutes or so after the webinar to address any questions or comments you might have. So, Cindy, I'll invite you to come on in. And thanks for your kind comments, Christian and Joanne.
Yep, that sounds great. And really enjoyed the conversation and wanted to tell you all that we interviewed the second graders on Tuesday morning who had created the video you saw and 3 other documentary videos about the watershed and water in their area as part of this new lesson. And it was absolutely clear to us that the kids learned some of the content about water and watersheds and the water cycle. But the thing they got the most out of doing this was a sense of empowerment. When we asked, do you think anybody learned anything from watching your video? Oh, they were so excited and absolutely sure that people learned stuff and that it would change people's action, that people would do things differently because they saw the video these kids had made. So, and they did have a red carpet event showcasing these 4 videos for family members and community members as well as other teachers, which was just a blast to go to. So adding that, yeah, and Stocks is there as well.
Cindy, it was great. I also just want to point out for people who are still on that these materials will be available for you, the ones that we walked through, the 3 different sets of lessons later this summer at some point. So keep your eyes open for it, and we'll be sending an e-blast, I'm sure, out to let people know when they're out and available for folks.
And let me also say that we have a lot of other materials available right now on our website. Everything is free for educators to use to download the PowerPoints and stream the videos. So in lots of different subject areas, including ranging from studying about the American Revolution, learning about the country of Africa, learning about nutrition and health and consumer education at the kindergarten and first grade levels, and a whole series of wonderful curriculum kits about environmental issues and sustainability, primarily for high school and college classes. So invite you to check those out, and ideally to join our listserv. We don't send out notices very often to members of our listserv, but that would be wonderful. Thank you. Mr. David, did I say the country of Africa? My bad. The entire continent of Africa is the focus of this curriculum kit for third grade. And in fact, that's kind of the point, is recognizing the vast diversity in looking at different countries in Africa. So you can tell that I'm tired at the end of the day. So it's absolutely the continent of Africa. Yeah.
Cindy, I just want to thank Cindy's note on incorporating student question activity. And I do want to say one of the things that we've tried to do with these curricula in particular, the ones relating to elementary school and sustainability, is to kind of challenge us to push our own frontiers, therefore incorporating media production for the first time. But another thing that we've done for the first time is really actively encourage students to begin to become question askers themselves. This is such a central part of good media literacy education. In fact, it's one of the core components of the C3 social studies standards, is to encourage students to recognize good questions, compelling questions, what makes a question good. And so I think that's a really important part of our work as educators interested in media literacy, is to get away from teachers just giving information and inviting students themselves to see themselves as active participants, not only in their communities, but in their classrooms when it comes to asking good questions.
That's great. So be delighted if anybody has any other questions or comments, questions about our materials, or wants to share something that you're doing or other resources that you've found in doing this. And we will be moving ahead in creating more curriculum materials, particularly in upstate New York. We've just gotten some funding from the New York State Department of Ed to work with educators in this area, the Finger Lakes area, and Southern Tier area, around sustainability education. So excited about what that will mean for us.
Okay, well, I think we're maybe, Cindy, moving toward closure on our end. I bet a bunch of people, I hope, are taking the webinar survey. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm going to sign off, but once again, it's been great. Thank you so much for making this a vital and engaged conversation. That's been true for all of our webinars. Lots of really great participation today. So thank you very much, and I'm signing off.
Great. And I think I'll probably sign off too. It sounds like everybody is pretty well set. I very much appreciate you completing the webinar survey. That helps us know how to improve things. And if you're on our listserv, you can hear about new things as they come up, and we'll announce when these lessons will be available on our website. So I think, Lou, given that, I think you can probably close us out, except for the wrap up.